chosen woman, you didn't come across this video by accident. Today, God wants to speak directly to you, as an answer to that silent prayer you've been making, often crying alone, asking for clarity about what to do in your love life. Maybe you've asked, Lord, should I respond? Should I give him a chance? Should I show that I'm still here? And he used me today to tell you, it's not time to respond to that message. What you're feeling right now, that tightness in your chest, isn't just longing. It's the Holy Spirit awakening you to something much greater. Because when this man appears out of nowhere, after days or weeks of silence, and sends that sweet message, as if nothing had happened, the world expects you to run to respond. But you, chosen woman, are not like the others. You were called to live a different story, a story that isn't built on crumbs, but on God's promises. That voice asking you to wait, that gives you peace when you hold back and don't give in to the impulse to respond, isn't just your intuition. It's God molding you. It's Him teaching you that true love isn't born from desperation, but from patience, faith, and trust in His purpose. Because the chosen woman doesn't move from neediness, but from conviction. I know that deep down, what you desire most is a restored relationship, the reconciliation that seems impossible to human eyes. But today the Lord is showing you that restoration begins within you, in your positioning. When you resist the impulse to respond immediately, you're showing not only Him, but especially the spiritual world, that your love life isn't guided by ego, by haste, or by fear of losing. Your love life is in the hands of the God who governs everything. And understand, the chosen woman doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't humiliate herself for attention. Because she knows her worth, and knows that love that comes from God doesn't need to be forced. You were already chosen before you were even born, and that means nothing that happens today is by accident. Even the silence has a purpose. It's preparing the ground for a transformation much greater than you imagine. So, chosen woman, don't respond to that message now. Respect the voice speaking within you, because it doesn't lie. It's the same voice that has already freed you from traps, that has already given you strength to rise when everything seemed lost. That voice today is saying, wait, trust, because what's coming will be much better than what a rushed response could give you. So, chosen woman, don't respond to that message now. Respect the voice speaking within you, because it doesn't lie. It's the same voice that has already freed you from traps, that has already given you strength to rise when everything seemed lost. That voice today is saying, wait, trust, because what's coming will be much better than what a rushed response could give you. And I want you to tell me here in the comments, when he comes back after disappearing for a while, do you also feel that tightness in your heart, that gentle voice inside you telling you to stay calm? Share with me, because what you write might be exactly the confirmation that another chosen woman needs to read today. Chosen woman, now that you've understood that inner voice isn't coincidence, but direction, it's time to comprehend what happens when you position yourself and choose not to respond immediately. This simple act, which seems small to human eyes, carries enormous weight in the spiritual world and also in His mind. Because the silence of a woman conscious of her worth is more powerful than 1,000 anxious words. When you don't run to respond, you communicate something much greater than an absence of response. You show that you're not available for crumbs. You show that you don't bow to a cycle of disappearing and reappearing that only serves to feed his ego. The instant you hold back the impulse, you make it clear that your life doesn't revolve around a phone, and that your attention isn't for sale at any cost. This silence, chosen woman, isn't empty. It's full of meaning. It echoes in his thoughts like a riddle. Why didn't she respond? Is she busy? Does she still want me? Did I lose my place? Meanwhile, you don't need to make any effort. It's the power of being in the right position, of letting silence work in your favor. Man, by nature, is driven by the instinct to conquer. When everything is easy, when the path is clear and without resistance, the flame dies out quickly. But when he realizes he can't predict your reactions, that you don't bend to his timing, something within him awakens. He begins to feel the need to truly conquer you, to move beyond superficiality. It's at this point that strategic silence becomes your greatest weapon. Understand well, this isn't about pride or games. It's about wisdom. Silence is a positioning that shows maturity, security, and faith. It's you saying, without opening your mouth, I know who I am, I know my worth, and I don't accept less than what I deserve. It's a demonstration of strength that goes far beyond the emotional, it's spiritual. The Word shows us that even Jesus, when faced with provocations, often chose silence. Not because he didn't have an answer, but because silence was the most powerful response. And you, as a chosen woman, are being called to act the same way. Instead of reacting impulsively, you remain firm, secure, and at peace, knowing that your silence is building something greater. While other women run to respond, giving themselves to any sign of attention, you become the exception. You become mystery. You become the challenge he can't figure out. And that's exactly what makes him stop seeing you as a common option and start realizing that you're different, that you're rare, that you're chosen. And all of this begins with something so simple, but so profound, holding back the impulse and letting silence speak. Chosen woman, now that you've understood the power of strategic silence, it's time to dive into something even deeper, the spiritual and emotional law that governs relationships. There's a universal truth, confirmed even by science, that you need to have engraved within you. The more available you show yourself to be, the less value you convey. This doesn't mean you shouldn't love, give of yourself, or surrender to a relationship. It means there's a time, a balance, an exact measure. The human heart, and especially the male mind, was designed to value what is scarce, what requires effort, what isn't easily found anywhere. When you respond immediately, you communicate, even without realizing. I don't have anything more important happening, I was just waiting for you. And this type of unconscious message, even though not verbal, directly affects how he sees you. Neuroscience shows that our brain releases more dopamine when we feel we're conquering something challenging. And in the spiritual world, this translates to honor. The chosen woman doesn't position herself as an easy prize, because she knows she was set apart for something greater. She understands that response time isn't just about a message on the phone, but about positioning. When you respond in your time, not his, you reverse the relationship dynamic. You stop chasing and make him move toward you. Notice how this changes everything. When you anticipate, run to show interest, he relaxes. He feels he already has you in his hands. And this removes any need to invest, to make effort, to fight for your presence. But when you don't give in to impulse, he enters another mental state, that of pursuit. He starts thinking about you more intensely, wondering what you're doing, missing you in a different way. And this is where the reverse attraction law manifests. The less you make yourself desperately available, the more space you give for him to feel longing, for him to realize the importance you have. This is the moment when he begins to realize that you're not just any woman, but the one who carries purpose. And remember, this isn't manipulation. It's awareness. It's maturity. It's you understanding that you can't give your heart to someone who appears and disappears according to their own convenience. What God is preparing for you isn't a shallow relationship, based on quick responses and impulsive emotions. What He has is deep, solid, built on respect and appreciation. So, chosen woman, never forget, responding when you want to, in the time you choose, isn't coldness, it's wisdom. It's you showing that your value isn't in being accessible at any hour, but in being honored, sought after, and conquered. This power reversal isn't about pride, but about balance. It's the beginning of the transformation that will change how He sees you and how you relate to each other. The real turning point happens when you understand that you don't need anyone's validation to feel complete. It's when you start looking within yourself and realize that you have an entire life to be lived, with dreams, projects, gifts, and talents that God placed in your hands. The chosen woman doesn't live waiting for her phone to buzz, doesn't make relationships the center of her existence. She knows that love is a blessing, but it will never be her only source of joy. When you dedicate yourself to building your own worth, something powerful happens. You stop begging for attention and start attracting respect. He realizes that you have a world of your own, a routine full of life, friendships that build you up, purposes that move you. And this completely changes how you're seen. Because the woman who has her own light doesn't need to chase anyone, she simply shines, and that brightness is impossible to ignore. The emptiness that so many women feel when they don't receive a message, you learn to fill differently, with prayer, with gratitude, with action. You begin to realize that you can learn a new skill, start a project, take care of your emotional and physical health, invest in your spirituality. And in this process, every step you take becomes a reminder that human love is just a detail compared to the fullness that God has already reserved for you. He will notice this. He will feel the difference. Because when a man encounters a woman who isn't desperate for companionship, he understands that there's something rare there. You're not just another one who settles for little. You're the one who, even alone, remains firm, complete, and confident. This not only increases the value He sees in you, but also raises the standard of any relationship that might emerge. And more than that, when you build your own worth, you shield yourself against relapses. The temptation to respond immediately diminishes, because your life is full of purpose. You stop feeling vulnerable to neediness, and start living in the certainty that you don't need to prove anything to anyone. This is liberating. This is being chosen. True respect is born when he realizes that you're not there for lack of options, but because you chose to be there. That you don't need a relationship to survive, but that you're ready to share your life because you've already built it on solid ground. And it's at this point that God's promises become visible. He prepares you, He strengthens you, He teaches you to love yourself first, so that no one will ever dare diminish who you are. Chosen woman, when you choose to position yourself, when you learn to use strategic silence and build your own worth, something begins to move invisibly, but powerfully. He stops seeing you as a guaranteed presence, and starts understanding that he could lose you if he doesn't change. And it's at this moment that his heart truly begins to open. The reconciliation that's born from this new posture isn't fragile, isn't made of back and forth, nor of empty promises. It's founded on something much deeper: respect, admiration, and the awareness that you're not a common woman, but the chosen woman. The love that blossoms from there isn't the same as before, because you're no longer the same. You don't go back to the point where it all began, you advance to a new stage, a renewed relationship. He understands that to walk beside you he needs to value you, listen to your voice, respect your boundaries, and recognize your worth. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it happens from the inside out, because God is the one conducting every detail. What once seemed like mere silence transforms into power. What once seemed like coldness reveals itself as wisdom. And what seemed like painful waiting manifests as preparation for a greater victory. When you position yourself as a chosen woman, you show the universe that you don't accept less than you deserve. You send a clear message. I know who I am, I know my worth, and I wait for what comes from God, not for any passing offer. And it's in this posture that true restoration takes shape. The man who once got comfortable starts fighting for your presence. The relationship that seemed lost begins to grow new roots, grounded in respect and admiration. You're no longer seen as a woman who settles for crumbs, but as the one who inspires transformation. Always remember, the chosen woman doesn't accept less than she deserves. When you embody this within yourself, something changes in the environment around you. You begin to attract situations aligned with your worth. You start being treated as a priority. You become exactly what you always were, a rare gift, a living promise, a reflection of God's love. And so, the future stops being a place of uncertainty and becomes a territory of fulfilled promises. Reconciliation happens, but not in the superficial way you imagined at the beginning. It happens at a deep level, where your identity is recognized and honored. Where you are loved, respected, and cared for as you always deserved. And all of this because you decided to listen to that gentle voice within you and position yourself as the woman you were born to be. Chosen woman, this word was released to your heart today because God knows exactly what you've been living through and what answers you were seeking. None of this is by accident. Every silence, every positioning, every step you take is part of a greater process of restoration and transformation. You're not alone, you're at the center of God's care. And if this message spoke to you, if it confirmed something the Spirit was already whispering in your heart, I want to ask you to strengthen this chain even more. Leave your like here on the video so this word can reach other women who also need to hear this. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because every day we have messages of hope, revelation, and direction for chosen women like you. Together, we'll create a community of faith, strength, and victory, where every testimony will be living proof that the impossible is just the stage for God to act.